folks. Welcome to another session from the old wise asylum. Good grief, what a lot going on. And you know what? You're not getting it in the media. So that's the first point I call. What are they up to now? It's not good. It's not good. They got kick-off points being kicked off all over it, sure. So we'll have a little run through that. And we'll get to what we haven't got to yet over the last 4 weeks, which is some British history. So last week we went up to Lucius, or went down to Lucius. Said to be the first Christian king after the Gospels. So interesting. I know a lot of people weren't aware of that. Lucius is quite an interesting word and name, isn't it? Not, and I suppose may trigger people to think it's Lucifer. It's Lucifer. Well, you know, there's a lot more knowledge to be had and known if you want to fully understand what Lucifer is and what he isn't, in essence. And it's not actually a creature, it's actually just a thesis about why don't you use your reason and your logic for yourself, which of course much of the dogma that you find in the religions forbid. So casting Lucifer out the garden is more in tune with all reason and use of and logic was no longer allowed in the garden, and it was cast out. You know, reason, logic, applying your own mind to your own ideas as opposed to being told what it is. That's the origin of, you might say, Lucifer, not so much a geezer. Because a lot of people think Satan and Lucifer are the same geezer, and they're not. You know, Satan is the sort of the adversary, the antagonist, the fool, as it were, if you go back to the Egyptian. The different entities completely. And, you know, the latter wants to undermine everything and turn it into shit. Whereas the other bunch, the Luciferians, weren't actually trying to turn things to shit. They were just using the reason and the logic. And of course, the more they did it, the further away they went from the dogmas, until eventually there were enough of them to declare, we're a secret society now. We'll do what we do, but we'll pretend over here. Yeah, that's pretty much what they split this all up into two, until eventually the secret societies got so important that they didn't have to hide it anymore. And here we are today. However, you can see the satanic side, or the adversary, has pretty much took over everything, has it? So where we've got these different ideas, these blocks of mindset, and then of course you've got the biblical text, which is two theses in one. You've got the original creation, which is the creation of a few. They don't call themselves gods, they call themselves Elohim. And of course they're making man in our image, which of course again shows you clearly that it's a conversation. And they're the ones that said, look, we created the heavens, the earth, the waters, the land, animals and man. And then we had a chill out. That's one gig, all on its own. Then there's this other one, which is a garden. Encircled with a fence, as it were. And all in the garden couldn't get out once they were in, because of course it was guarded. But in the sanctum of that garden was this unseen, unknown voice demanding that you don't bother with anybody else, no more Elohim, keep away, and the big cheese. And that were it. Commandments out everywhere, you will, you shall, and thou wilt. And of course, so that's two theses within the biblical text itself. You've got a third added to that when you apply the Talmud. So that block on its own, the biblical side, is got many theses in there battling for supremacy. And then you've got the satanic side, which is another group, another mindset, another frequency, you might say, and it's in opposition to what is. You could say the garden creation again is in opposition to Genesis 1, because of course Genesis 1 creates man in their image. We're talking mind, you know, the mind of it. It's mind when you get back to the basic origin of the term man. It's not land as came after, if you take it right back, you're talking mind. You're talking mind, which then, if you want to get an idea of what that is, then you go back to the Egyptian, and so you're looking at, they call it Domidon Doxamedon, and that's the source, mind, and it's invisible because it's a mathematical equation. Don't trigger, you know what I'm saying? We don't need to trigger on that, but if you go back further, way beyond biblical, and then you've got the Satan from that time would be called Sakla, and he was the fool, the origin of the terror. Okay, so, you know, there's reason why people say that terror actually originated in Egypt and was carried forward into what we call the West through the Romani gypsies, who have always claimed ancestry back to Egypt. So you've got Satan, and you've got this garden geezer, and then you've got the group that created the whole shindig upon which everything else is based. But it's important that we understand that there are three big bodies of collective minds affixed and attached to them. And like I said, with Lucifer, you're not looking at a being, you're looking at reason and logic. That is what it is. And of course, a bit more in sync with Genesis 1 in that you've been given a mind, create. That's what they said they are. You're in the image, they created, you create. That's the thing. So that side of reason and logic, using that is essential if you're going to create, isn't it? And not create what other people have said, create this. So there's your origin of that. That got kicked out of the garden, blah, de blah, de blah. And everybody thinks that that's the devil or Satan. Well, it's not. It's not at all. So three branches. But it does look like the adversary or Sakla or Satan is now pretty much has enveloped all of them and took them all over. You know, and so America, you know, built on reason and logic, didn't it? It came away from the dogmas. That's what his intent, to create a nation that they tried to create here on England but couldn't, because it was still fixed to the old school ideas, you know, religion versus evil. No matter if you weren't religious, you were evil. Male or female, cat, dog. If you were associated with being a familiar, then and you were an animal, you were pretty screwed. A bit like what they're doing again. They're attacking the cat now. They want you to vaccinate your dogs and your cats. Well, why not? You've been vaccinating them anyway, haven't you, for years? I mean, it's, yeah, you know, that's why it's embedded in the mindset, this kind of stuff. But you've got basically these three big groups of mindsets. The biblical one has three sets within that, and four if you include the Talmud, and then you've got the myriad of other versions of it, all fixed in one particular group. So you could say that's faith. There you've got faith wrapped up in what we call biblical, and there's a million different paths you can choose. You've got satanic, which is in contradiction to both the biblical, which is always, or its intent is to try and be good. So maybe you could say satanic's reference in the biblical side is the Talmud. There you can see in there, and its own raw nature. There's you getting all your sacrificial stuff that everybody rants on about, and all the things that go with that. That's one branch. But people then apply that and say, well, if you're in a secret society, you support Lucifer, you've got to be Satan. Not so. Again, it's a different mindset, a different frequency that people are operating on. And in many cases, especially, let's say up to the last 40 years, in the York Rite especially, all those that were classed as Freemasons also believed themselves to be Christian. So although they kept the religious morals, they didn't stick with the dogmas, which prevented them from using their own reason and logic. And, you know, that was the mindset. Even, so let's say the guys that are like in the 70s now, if they live a life through Masonry, they're the prime example of men and women who were happy to be in the Masonic lodges, but also accepted that they were still operating according to the Christian morals. So that was the York Rite. That's the York Rite in its entirety. You had to be a Christian to join the York Rite. Scottish Rite, however, is a completely different gig. Yeah, and of course, when you get back to 1700s and you've got the one of the Bourbon dukes saying dismantle Freemasonry, it's been took over by a sun cult. You had all that business in America where they all left the lodges because I think it was either John Brown or Captain Morgan. Something that happened to one of them two characters caused half of the lodges to be, people left in protest. So you could see something again taking it over there at the same time. But people forget that, you know, they called it a sun cult, took it over, you might say. But then what is the sun? People then straight away, in the image that we've had put in our head, that means Gnosticism. Oh, it's Gnosticism that's evil. Well, not quite, because you've got to understand that the pivotal method by which the Illuminati gained full control in all the various lodges across the West, which were varied in their approach and their acting, in the sense, in building what it were, making manifest what the priesthood wanted. It was the creation of the Grand Orient. That was the key. And of course, with all the opium running and everything that had gone on from India through to China, built up with this East India Company, Penal Ferries, you know, Russell family, all these big name families that were basically the beneficiaries of all that game. They created secret societies all across India and China. Hong Kong Society, you've got your Triads and various other dragon societies. So all these were created back then in order that the opium that were being pushed could be dealt out. That's what they did. So it was a secret society mix in its entirety, and it were headed by the East India companies. So once they created the Grand Orient, then it was the affiliations with that lodge that enabled this sun cult, which is the Eastern Sun. Yeah? Not that picture that you get in your mind when this is discussed, you get the Gnostic idea, immediately it's evil. But no, what they were seeing encroaching at them in the 1700s was the Eastern Sun via these lodges all starting to affiliate with the Grand Orient, because of course that's where the money were. That's where the cash was, in the Grand Orient. Yeah? And that's pretty much basically where this, again, we move back to the adversary, or Satan, or Iblis, if you're a Muslim, Saka, if you go back to the Egyptian, Sakla rather, has pretty much grabbed himself into everything now. The Luciferians are now operating in accordance to that. Him as a raw power is doing it, and of course you can look in the entire body of what is the biblical tradition, and you can see this crap going on. Paul Wack is a mod. Now I checked you well just before I come on, and you were there still, and then there, lad, you're done. So it might take a while after I mess about. So there you go, well done, man. So that I wanted to get at, because I've been thinking about that for a bit, just to think, well, how can you explain such a, like, how am I looking at this whole shindig? Because of course we're exploring, aren't we? We're not creating a religion, we're not telling everybody they have to believe what we're saying, we're not saying any such thing. We're exploring situations, we're exploring knowledge, situations that are happening today, because a lot of them apply. You can see it in the past that they've used the same strategies. So it's an exploration. So if you go from that foundation, yeah, Luciferianism, so that's all the guys, the minds that wanted to use the reason, so we came away from the dogmas, not necessarily the morality, as has happened today. You've got satanic stuff all by itself, which is associated with the cube, it's associated with Saturn. But ultimately, it's the fool also in the terror. And it's an adversary, yeah, Loki, if you will. The coyote in the Native American theology. It's the same. No matter where you go out there, you can pull this picture together. If, and this is the problem, once you actually join one of these particular groups, then you become encircled by it, and it becomes separatist. Yeah, as we were discussing before, a common ground isn't going to come while we hold on to them ring-fenced ideologies. Because as soon as you ring-fence, you can't talk to that one, and you certainly can't talk to that one. and vice versa. And so everybody's falling out and everybody hates each other, and they've got a ton of data and scripture to back up the fact that they haven't to talk to them, they can't talk to them, and they're dirtier than them because they don't wash the bottom, or such, whatever it might be. Big nose, pick it up. We can't be them because they've got that. So you're screwed. You're screwed. So it only takes one above all that to be pulling the strings of them all. You've got full control. Everything, opposition, everything is controlled by the same priesthood, and that's pretty much what we've got. Now, you know, in my studies back in the day, Zoroastrianism seems to be at the top of the tree because it's a much older one, and when you get into its sort of guts, it incorporates this kind of what we could say control, but masks it very well. If you were to get to it just on the periphery, you could see it as quite a decent thing, a bit like the mythical, all this stuff, all based on that kind of stuff, all mixed in together now. So then we got the biblical tradition because they stole it all from all these older traditions and mashed it all up. So what were I going to say? So if you go in from that standpoint, then, and you're looking out at it rather than you being fixed into it. You're aware of it all. You've got ideas of how it works, how they operate, who's operating. You can go back through its histories. But ultimately, you've managed to prevent yourself from getting fixed into either one. Yeah? Because, for me, I've always been able to see that there's a little bit of everything in me, kind of thing. So, for instance, if I had to go into action, let's say, you know, to defend myself, I could go as far as were required, which then, if you were looking at it, you might think, oh my God, he's a devil. Do you know what I'm saying? So I just recognise I've got all reason you can think of. So I have that aspect of, and I have faith, but more importantly, I take the morality that you find within the biblical traditions. Well, most of them anyway. Because I don't think they're a bad thing, you know? So I can see that they exist, they're all aspects, different aspects of who we are. And of course, that then is, I would say, the territory. That's what is out there, and I'm not fixed to either one. I don't hate either one, but I don't mind exposing when they're doing that, and they're doing this, because it's not funny. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm saying, no, that's no good, and I'll have something to say about it. And that's fair enough. That's fair play, is it not? And we do still live on England. But the problem is here, the map, isn't it? The map's in no way for most people are looking at the situation like that, because the map it's full. It's got a full edit on and it's ring fenced. And there might be... So for instance, the reason why they had to get rid of Alex Jones, right? Very simple. Alex Jones was perfect for his day because the majority of people that were picking up on this things are not right.gov were people on the street, people with a bit of Bertram, people that were a bit thoughtful to criminality. Your average Joe down at the bottom end of the game and the entire system at that level, those were the people that were picking this up. Okay? There were always a lot of females picking this up. That's always been the case. They do seem to pick it up a lot quicker than the males, but of course they need the males to pick it up because we're the ones that are going to shove it into action. Not to say that females can't do that themselves, but in general terms, the feminine has to nurture something, bore it, and then launch it, and the best way to do that is through the masculine energy. So Alex Jones were perfect because that's his audience. That were the audience who were picking up. Now, of course, since all this shenanigans, there's a lot of middle class people. You know, they're getting squeezed. It's happening to them. They have to pay attention. Everything that's just going on now, you know, there's a lot of people in the middle class side now waking up. They have to change the quality of the fronts as the controlled opposition. Yeah, has to be done. Otherwise, they'll lose it. Alex Jones will never appeal to middle class people. You'll frighten them to death, you know, unless they like John Wayne and stuff like that. But even so, you'd have to like the baddies in John Wayne films, wouldn't you? Because he's a bit overpowering. But there you go. He's out the mix now as far as being front end. He'll still have a presence because there's still a lot of people that go and relate to that frequency that he puts out. Because all through this, he's the only man that's been able to speak street language without getting into trouble. He could have a meltdown on TV, and they loved it. In fact, mainstream media used to pick him up because he had mental breakdowns and said things that you wouldn't necessarily say unless you were saying it in jest. So he was perfect, but he were a front, and he obfuscated, and he did a job very well. The guy were absolutely supreme at it, and Bill Cooper warned us all about him way back in the day. So it was no secret. But now they need a better quality. They need a much better quality because they has to appeal to the middle class. So they want a suit. They want a suit, they want a shirt and a tie, even better. They want nice fancy things in the background so it feels like they're in the living room. Or you've got to go like they expect on the telly. If you're not doing that, they're not listening, they're not watching because it doesn't fit. They can't look at you and think, I can't take information off this guy. He swears, he's uncouth, he's naughty, and he's a northerner. Well, I don't particularly give a shit, but this is how it works. You're editing because your map is running the show. But just back to what I was saying, there's a common denominator between Luciferianism, Satanism, and all the biblical traditions. And I'll include Buddhism and all the rest in that tradition as well. Because it does come from the East through Mithra, through Zoroastrianism as well. So it's all in the mix. So that's a huge block. But they have one thing in common. They're all on the outside of you. It's all you looking out at the territory. It isn't who you are, unless you're stuck in it. Yeah? So that's the outside. And I always refer back, no matter what I'm doing, to the words of the man, which was, the kingdom of my Father is within. So, that shenanigans is going on all outside of there, but it's outside. It's not going to give me the data I'm looking for, really, is it? Because I have to invert and start looking and pay attention to my own parts. So that's basically the premise that I'm at with all this stuff. The more I study, the more that just becomes the reality. It's in the territory, but if you're stuck in it, whichever one you're stuck in it, you're going to embed yourself in it and fight to death to support it. Whereas if you can just recognise it in those terms, each has its particular essence. Faith and morality, biblical. Pure animal, obscene, I'm not happy, I'm a rebel, Satanism. Perfect for people like that. I want all the control in the world. I'm a clever guy, smart as teeth, big IQ, blah 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 blah, big ego, and I use my logic. Look how successful I am. Again, it's another system. But they're outside. And you can only take points of reference from them. You're going to take them verbatim as your source for how you're going to live your life. You're in trouble. It doesn't mean become a monk and float around on a mountain. But it's how you see it within yourself again, so that you're not getting fixed to it. So that when you're watching things, videos coming up, and if you're fixed and believe it's one religion versus another, every time you see an image or a video on whatever you're watching, you're going to trigger to anger. It automatically triggers you to anger because your edit in your map as you're fixed being opposite. It really is about, we need to let go, not of the morality of these systems, but we have to let go of their capacity to completely and utterly control us at a subconscious level. And you do that by recognising when you're triggered. Because analyse that trigger, you can start to see what it is that you're holding that made that come. Because, as we move forward now with where we're at, it's the anger that's going to create the chaos that they're looking for. And if you're not equipped or well prepared for this, what other response can you have but anger? You're going to go, most people are going to go completely nuts. I mean, you're going to get a lot of people that will just collapse and give up, but there's going to be a lot of folk out there that are going to take advantage, aren't they? So you've got to start to think of it like this. So you can pull yourself out the furore and get yourself on a balanced playing field and start to think. Use the logic. Concern yourself with how they play on the dark side so you're aware of it, but keep the moral code. You're going to have to let go of the dogmas. And that's for all the religions. The dogmas you need to let go because they're the ones fixing the edit and making nobody like each other down there at the game of it. Right, that said, back to they need to create new controlled opposition, right? Now, throughout this shindig that's gone down, yeah, a lot of people have done the dance, a lot of people stopped doing the dance, and their antennas are up. Okay, they still have a fail-safe, thinking, well, okay, if it comes back on, at least I've got me certificate, blah, blah, blah. It's not going to work, folks, because they're just going to keep stabbing you. Alright, it never ends, because there's a bigger agenda behind that. I know a lot of people probably haven't whacked up to that yet, but it doesn't matter. We don't have to discuss it here. So they needed better quality. Better quality. People that they could control. Sorry, people that they controlled. But because of the data they were giving you, you hooked onto it right away because you knew things weren't right, so you were looking for the answers. And they then create a new controlled opposition. And so I want you to look at, remember this guy? Yeah, this guy, to all intents and purposes, is a crusader giving it to you exactly how you want it. That's what he's doing. And I've watched a lot of his stuff in the past, and I've, gone along with what he's saying as feasible, possible, potential. Now, there's another one who, this guy here, you could say, gave the platform for this other face, and a lot of people are going to recognise his face because she was very popular. Hang on a minute. Wait a minute. She was very popular throughout this shindig, and it's this Flossie here. No, it's not being a dick. Well, it's playing silly buggers, so we'll just knock that off. Right, now you all remember this face, because this face has been everywhere, and this one particular face, we're pushing out a particular script. 2 scripts, in fact. The problem and offering a remedy. It says, Kerry Madej, osteopathic and internal medicine. Kerry Madej has a great love for humanity and the sacredness of life. Her trust and faith are in our Creator and Father in heaven and Yeshua Jesus Christ, His only begotten Son who sacrificed His life to save us. Now that's a major red flag to me, okay? Because she's saying, I am this and I'm not that. We don't have to, you know what I'm saying. Kerry believes that the body, mind and spirit are equally important in achieving wellness, and that the balanced body has the inherent ability to heal itself. She believes a physician should be a teacher of health to the patient, as well as identify the causes of disease in order to have an optimal body. Originally from Dearborn, Michigan, she received a medical degree from Kansas City University of Medical Biosciences in 2001. She currently dedicates her time educating others on the things and the other things and human rights via multiple platforms and speaking engagements. And she's been on Stu Peters, Mike Adams, 5 Docs, Daily Storytelling, Alex Jones, and KLA International. There's Mr. Jones, red flag. So, now, not that long ago, I picked up some data that made me look at this woman in a different light, and I think there were about 4 serious professors in this field, and what they were saying were basically that they believed that certain persons were using images of parasitic nature and other anomalies in this thing, but when in fact they were what you find with particular diseases that are known, and that they were being misused in order to scare the living bejesus out of those that had done the dance. And that's probably about 3 months ago when I came across it, and I thought I'm going to keep that in mind, because I accepted what they were saying. It sounded more credible in truth. Now, that came from this woman here, Kerry Madej, right? That's what she were about all that on every show she went on, showing you image after image after image, and claiming it to be from what the dance, as it were. Not the case, it would appear. Now, she's now stood with a guy. This guy looks pretty innocent, doesn't he? Well, look at me, I'm just an innocent geezer. Busy mates. Yet remember her bio, where she's presented herself as this, so you don't see that she's that. Okay? Now, okay, it looks innocent, and this guy looks a jolly old chap. You know, he's drinking water, he's a sensible guy, he likes armbands and stuff like that. And he's got a microphone on. So he's a serious guy, obviously doing interviews because he's obviously talking at some point. But interestingly, or rather, very sinisterly, if we're to be frank, this is the guy. Now he's called Dr. Zelenko, and he claims you must choose either the bug, tyranny, or Noahide laws, which we now know are classed as commandments. Okay. Now he says, but Gentiles will be killed or made slaves in both cases, say rabbis, and that's updated on the 30th of the 8th, 22. This is by James Hill, MD, 23rd of April, 2022, St. George's Day. Dr. Vladimir Zelenko, oh dear, encourages people to turn to the 7 Noahide laws to escape the bug, face, and shot slavery. Yet rabbis tell us Gentiles, not Jews, will be killed or forced to be servants under the Noahide laws once Gentiles are under the type of control mandatory shots create. Okay? So that's what it's all been about, getting you under the control of these guys because you're too busy dealing with the troubles you're having, or it's dumbed you down even more because you're still doing fluoride and other nasty things. But basically you can see now that it's all been about disabling you. Yeah? This is why middle class people have started to wake up. Alex Jones is no good. They need Stu Peters. They need Tucker Carlson. Yeah? They need these people. Now, of course, when we're getting into this, it also implicates all loony. It implicates the copper that's involved with them guys, I forget his name, which we've discussed before. He says that Dr. Zelenko is one of the world's leading voices fighting for early treatment and against damage. His work might have saved. Okay. Dr. Zelenko advocates deadly Noahide laws. And there's a video, again I'll put this up. He says millions more could be wiped out under the Noahide laws when the Messianic age comes, explain leaders. So why? That's obviously he's a Zionist. Alright? So he's not a Jew, he's not anything other than the political side of what we call Zionism, which is, you could say, Marxism with a bit more oomph. Yeah? So that's who this girl is, mucking around with. And then there's a bit of a piece here. So when it comes to Dr. Kerry Madedge, there are two possibilities. Either the filament in her mental light bulb was disintegrated, or she's knowingly peddling nonsense. In either case, she is a menace to society. And this will put out 17th of November, 21. I'm irritated. There just seems to be no end to the nonsense that floods social media. This time the purveyor is Dr. Kerry Madedge, an osteopathic physician who no longer practices and now dedicates her time to educating others on vaccines. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because she was carrying out treatments to people, okay? And when you go through all her statements that were online, that were on paperwork that she put out about what the dosages were for this, what she was giving, I think it was some kind of bleach kind of thing. It was something like 3 ml with this other mix of stuff. So it was very low content. However, a family that are particularly well known for discussing the Noahide, in fact, you know, these are the guys that actually really, you could say, put the Noahide on the map in the mind of non-Noahides, if you get me. So the Masonic knew at 21st degree, They probably knew degrees less as well, because it would have to come into the frame. You've got all the interconnections with the secret societies of Morocco, and then into the East, etc. That's what we're dealing with today. And she is tied into the guy we've just looked at, who's pushing for the Noahide. So she's put herself, she'd met him before it all took place, the entire fantasy, and became friends, or at least they thought she were. Then when it all kicked off, she came in, did the deed, and actually, instead of 3 mil, put 21 mil in. And pretty much caused havoc. And the elderly one, who isn't actually involved in the speaking about the Noahide, actually died. And so that makes me think, is all Kerry Madge more than just a friendly face talking about these images, which, according to some experts, are images being misused because they are found inside patients, but they're suffering a particular condition. Yeah, so this guy, and 21 were saying that this woman is a bit demented. But didn't they get everybody's attention? Didn't they just get your attention and everybody else's? And even for people that didn't do the deed, it was quite worrying to think that that kind of stuff were being shoved into folk. You know? So, another example of a building of controlled opposition. And of course, you've got Tucker Carlson and everything that's gone on with him. Same gig. Who is he now? Or he's against Fox? He's against Murdoch, isn't he? No. He's been moved into something else. It'll be far more beneficial for him with the old Wally. You know? You've got all these Veritas, all these, they put out great stuff, but they have to do. They wouldn't get your attention if they didn't. This is what they do when they set something off. They set off the blag, and then they set off the double blag, because the double blag exposes this side. 80%. You jump on it, nothing that they just keep on giving you data. It's data. You fully absorb it and trust these people. You're all under the spell of the very force that set these two out, and that's what they do with Tucker Carlson, and it's exactly what I think they've done with Stu Peters. And so all you need to do now is backtrack and look at the people that you've took to heart that came through Stu Peters, that Tucker Carlson's put up on the map, Joe Rogan has put up on the map. Yeah, look at these people that are all attached or came through those avenues. So Stu Peters, Carlson and Rogan, look at who's been filtered up through them that are part of this. And then you can start to see that they're in and of themselves a part of creating this controlled opposition, because it keeps you off the scent of what's really going on. Interesting, don't you think? Now, one more thing while I've just found this today actually, but just continuing this paedophile ring in your front of your face malarkey. And yes, it's going on as Q presents it, but that is in the main sort of what they're pulling up out of disaster areas through Red Cross and Clinton Foundation, all these big foundations and charities that go into disaster areas and war zones. That's where that's going on, and it does go on. Let's not kid ourselves. But right while you're focused on that, you're not seeing that it's actually being set up right under your face. You know it's been set up. They're now starting to expand its use, and that's through the social services and such like. So, 97, new education system brought in. The academy agenda was a big part of that, because that was the method of private-public partnership, which basically meant the corporate were coming in, taking over the school, taking over the properties and the grounds, and thrusting the corporate curriculum on your offspring. Right? That's what they did. One of the pioneering academy conglomerate was ARC Academies, or Absolute Return for Your Kids. To them. Yeah? Arpad Burson kicked it off. Giovanni Agnelli were a big thing going up. Bob Royals are in it. Prince William is the patron of it. Okay, we got Arpad Burson to resign way back in the day. We've angered it forever because we know what it is. We tied it to Dutra, the Dutra Belgium outrageous scandal with the paedophilia, the snuff, the murder, and all that went with it, all tied in with the aristocracies, the big high-level Jesuits, and these are what we name. This is not me saying this. So all the archetypes across Europe and here were tied in to that. You've got Jersey, so you can see that they've always used these child centres, these child operations to secure children. And of course, when it had to be even more secret, they had to keep it in with, get kids so that they're basically in the system and they're never going to be even known about. Nobody's going to care. Them are the ones that they're going to pull right into these networks. But now they don't need to do that. They've incorporated the social services, the courts, the police. Everybody's working for this system. And they're in the schools. You don't need me to tell you this. They've got the teachers pushing it. If they're not pushing it, they're hiding it. They're going out of their way to make sure the parents don't find out. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. Not parents, mother and father. Yeah. It's there. It's going on. It's massive. But there were a bit of a furore not that long ago in Africa, and it was around this orphanage in Kenya, Nyumbani Orphanage, and it was set up by Father Angelo Di Agostino and Sister Mary Owens in '92 to serve mostly abandoned children created by the AIDS pandemic. Well, we know that that were basically depleted. You're just testing everybody, saying, yeah, you've got it, and then knocking them off with the meds. So they set up this charity then to pick up all the kids that were going to be left without a mother and father, or usually just a mother, because the fathers were nowhere to be seen. So this were a major operation that they set up in sync with launching all that malarkey, and scooped up all these flea bags. Yeah, Johnson & Johnson's in there. BBC, Global Citizen. Programs supported by Iceland to boys, United States, United Kingdom, Ireland, Spain, Italy, Kenya. Big operation that they set up in '92 to start to capture children. Now, there's a particular guy that we all know who's tied into this. And he's called Jeremy Hunt. It says earlier this month, and this is 2019, Leo Toto Community Outreach Programme hosted Foreign Secretary of the United Kingdom, Jeremy Hunt, at the Kibera location. The Foreign Secretary, who was in Kenya as part of a week-long trip to Africa, was accompanied by his wife, Lucia, and a British High Commissioner to Kenya, Nick Haley. It says Paul Anko and the chairperson of Nyumbani Kenya Board and Father Francis, Vice Chair of the Board, received the delegation. Now, this is where he has a connection. It's that in 2004, Jeremy Hunt co-founded Hot Courses Foundation, which receives portions from his education company, Hot Courses Limited. So you can see that when I've said before, the cabinet, it's the cabinet that's got the power, and it doesn't matter whether it's Labour, Conservatives, or Liberals. It's the cabinet that has the power, and all the people that are going to make up the cabinets at any given time, because they're chosen by the party leader, are all part of this network. Yeah, the royals are involved. We've looked at Prince William last week. He's clearly 100% a Scottish Rite invention. So, of course, Scottish Rite not needing to be Christian at all. We're not talking about anything English that they're creating here in this shindig. It goes back to King Jerusalem. It's a Templar gig. And this is another aspect of it. So you've got the Ark in the schools, you've got Oasis, which is run by Church of England, you've got all these evangelical forces involved in this privatised education, where they're teaching them all this filth. I mean, they're turning out real. It's going to be sad when people start to realise just what has actually happened to these youngsters by having this stuff thrown into them. We haven't really seen it yet, I'll tell you. So Jeremy Hunt is involved through this Hot Courses Foundation, which he co-founded, and his education company, Hot Courses Limited. The foundation was set up to help fund the educational elements of Nyumbani programs and establish multiple schools in Nyumbani village. Now, how many people out there have said, why did they give aid to India when they do a space program? Why are they giving aid here when they're doing this? Well, the reason is, it's this group taking pound notes and dollars off the taxpayer and funding these foundations in other countries. So Hot Courses Foundation is getting funded by our aid programs. Hot Courses Limited is being funded by our foreign aid. And so wherever this foreign aid is going, you've got these operations in there. And we're funding them. And they call it foreign aid. So this, we care about African kids, it's just a front, it's a mirage. Behind it is an intelligence operation. It's boots on the ground in another area where they've got access to flea bags. Yeah, this is what's going on. So now we know why Jeremy Hunt has been put in that position that he's been put in. Now, of course, we know and we can see that they're going to get rid of this story a lot. So they're going to expose them themselves. So the controlled opposition that are pulling this stuff out, again, would be classed as controlled opposition. But they're in politics, so people that are fixed to that are not going to see it. This is how subtle this game works. And their job, because they're being outed, they'll just disappear. Disappear by some means, and they'll take up another position somewhere else, maybe to the side of the world. But they'll still be functioning, because most of these people are what we call lifetime actors of intelligence, the gig, the system. So there you go. Always kids. Always flea bags. You know? It's not good. Now what else do I have? I have something else to show you. Ah, yes. You remember that Flossie that we had a little look at, and we had a varied idea of what could have been going on? That woman that were on the plane talking about this guy's not real. So apparently the identity of her has been found, and obviously it's quite interesting. So, but obviously until we get to talk to her or she has something to say, it's still all guesswork whether it were a blag or whether it were real. And it says the identity of the woman who exited an American Airlines flight after a tirade about a passenger who she claimed was not real has been revealed according to reports. In the viral video, which circulated after the 2nd of July incident, the woman could be seen screaming at fellow passengers about her reasons for exiting the plane while standing in the aisle of the aircraft. I'm telling you, I'm getting the F off, and there's a reason why I'm getting the F off. The woman could be heard yelling as she walked up the plane aisle. And everyone can either believe it or not. They can not believe it. I don't give two Fs. But I'm telling you right now that the other back there is not real. This woman then continued with the profanity-filled tirade, adding, and you can sit on this plane and you can effing die with them or not. I'm not going to. In a statement to the Independent at the time, a spokesperson for the American Airlines confirmed the incident taking place on board a flight from Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, and that the customer was removed from the flight. Safety and security are our top priorities, and we thank our customers for their understanding and our team members for their professionalism in managing a difficult situation, the airline said. The woman has since been identified by the New York Post as Tiffany Gomez, a marketing executive who lives in Dallas, Texas. According to the Post, which reviewed police documents about the incident, Gomez, 38, was allegedly unwilling to leave the flight despite her rant. Well, again, that's a different gig to what we were told before. The police document all described the issue that reportedly sparked Gomez's tirade, with the New York Post reporting that Gomez had allegedly gotten into an argument with family members that she was travelling with over her purpose in AirPods. According to the outlet, Gomez accused her relatives of stealing her AirPods. Well, that's a new one on me. There was no mention of a relative back then. The female in the story claimed the aircraft was not safe and did not want the aircraft to leave due to her believing it would not make it to its destination. The 2nd of July complaint states, adding that the flight attendants then felt the aircraft needed to be re-screened. The passengers aboard the flight were then forced to exit the plane so they could be screened through security again, the New York Post reported. Well, that weren't said again neither. The original post of the video which showed the clip on TikTok previously claimed the incident delayed the flight by 3 hours. According to the Daily Mail, the TikTok user also claimed the woman somehow did not get arrested and got back through security after the whole plane had to deplane. Comedian Scott Thompson, who is known by his stage name Caractacus, and who was allegedly on board the plane when the incident took place, also opened up about the experience. According to Thompson, who filmed himself at the airport, after he was allegedly forced to deplane alongside the other passengers, the incident occurred because the woman lost her earbud. This is on my airplane, Thompson said in a since deleted Instagram video. Before turning the camera towards himself to tell his followers, well, this is why we're still sitting here, in Dallas, because she lost her earbud. In a follow-up video allegedly taken after the incident, Thompson revealed that he and other passengers finally made it to Orlando, Florida. So, it says the paper also reportedly states that Gomez was distraught by the time officers arrived at the gate and was attempting to board the plane again. She then reportedly refused to speak to Dallas-Fort Worth Department of Public Safety Police. Gomez was reportedly given a verbal criminal trespass notice by the airline manager and told that she was denied boarding and needed to depart the secure area. According to the documents reviewed by the outlet, however, Gomez continued to try to come back through the TSA screening and into the boarding area multiple times, the documents state, noting that she was eventually found sitting on the curb outside the terminal, where she was waiting for an Uber. Now that's interesting. It doesn't sound like she were off her head for me for just going through that, but again, we don't know. The complaint allegedly states that Gomez was never formally arrested or taken into custody. The outlet reports that the 38-year-old Oklahoma State University graduate previously served as Vice President of Client Services for Elevate Brand Marketing and lives in a $2 million home in the Lakewood neighborhood of Dallas, according to public records. Industry publication PPAI Media previously named Gomez on its 20 most watchable young leaders list in 2017. While speaking to the publication about the honour, Gomez was asked to reveal her inspiration, to which she named her mother. Well, that's a bit suspect, isn't it? Young leaders. Interesting. My mother, for so many reasons, her courage and conviction is second to none. She's the first to lend a hand when someone needs help, Gomez said. She's my sounding board, my sanity, my coach, my confidant. She's simply amazing. On her LinkedIn profile, which has since been deleted, Gomez was listed as the owner of Uppercut Marketing LLC, an advertising firm, according to Insider. As of 8th of August, the website for Uppercut Marketing appears to have been removed. So there we go. The mystery continues. So I don't know what you make of that, and it might be time to come and have a look at you lot. Hey, what do you reckon? So, Mew says, good evening, Sean, one and all, good evening to you. Anita says, good evening to you. Lex says, evening, Sean Boyorg, good evening to you. Hilary says, hello, Sean, everyone, hello, Hilary. PY Music is blue. Ho, 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 go on, lad. Paul says, good evening, Sean, everyone. Solving this, hello, Sean. Goddess, good evening, Sean. Goddess. Ho, ho. And Cos973 gives it the old gigs in the pink cap. David Gregg, evening all. We've got we've got the agent, we've got the clapping hands and the swords, we like that. New Pit, PY Music, praise the Lord, Sean's finally cracked it. Well, I haven't, I did it yonks ago, it's only just happened. Yeah, I did this about 2 weeks ago, maybe more, I can't remember. But it's took that long to come up. It shouldn't take that long to come up. And it won't let, guess who they won't let be the chief Faruno moderator? Me. I mean, what's that all about? Treen says, hi Sean and all like a Treen. Untitled says, hello Sean and everyone. Not Ninja. Okay. I think that's a ninja. Anthony Mother Crows, hey up folks. A little late. What's that? Face for Tears of Joy. Doing business with the UK Gov. Trying to get through to the fruit bats. Good luck with that, my old China. Moon Pit says, look, hey up Moon, fancy seeing you here. Let's have a look. Prefixing being wise. Prefix being wise. Of course. Topping up in with Claudio. Very interesting astrology this week. I liked it. They were very good. Bloody freezing on my TV as usual. It's annoying. It's on your TV. Maybe it's just a bad signal from your TV to your router. Tree. Although other people were having the same problem not long ago. Where are we? But Carrie, I don't want to be saved. So you're liking that. It doesn't look good for what I've come across this week about what she's actually done. Girls actually tried to knock off a full family of serious exposers of the Noahide system, which I think is rather very worrying. And on top of what I said, I saw a while ago where they were saying that these images actually are being misused. So there we go. Brittany's good for it. I don't want to say the Brittany's is a good word for it, Sean. Brittany's. He died of cancer, Sean, but I have no idea about the link to Noahide with him. Are we talking about that geezer? Okay. Oh, Zev. Okay, yeah. Zev looks like the wolf next to the Brittany in sheep's clothing. So, yeah, I mean, we were exploring, aren't we? It just, especially with what I've heard this week. I mean, it's been rambling in my mind about this woman for a while, and I've spoke to a couple of people about it in weeks, so it's not... But once I came across this week about what did actually take place about 2 years ago, when it were all going on, shocking. And I mean shocking. Let's have a look. Council should be charged and prosecuted. What for? What are they? Everything. It's the council executive. The councillors don't really have your mandate anymore, because what they don't tell you when they take your power of attorney to act in the council chamber for you is that as soon as they get your vote and they get in office, they have another agreement with the executive. And that agreement means they'll not interfere or stop or block in any way the executive's agenda. And then there were a Telegraph piece yesterday where they were saying that councils and who did they have? I forgot. Councils and someone else colluding to destroy the high street. Yeah, stakeholder committees. Another. They're all colluding to pull it. Now, we've just gone through in locally how they are scooping up now all the public buildings that are ours into their own trusts. Now, beginning of last year, I did a job on the Oslo Twistle Civic Theatre. An absolutely amazing place, and they put some really good stuff on. Now, when I went in last year for dry rot, okay, so I had to pull up a floor in an entrance, quite a good size, remove the rock, treat it, and install a brand new floor. And the one thing I noted straight away is that under the floor, all the airways have been sealed with rock wool. So it was deliberate. And also, underneath the floors were the edge of the timbers under the skirting. Everything had been sealed. So I spoke with one of the guys there. I think he was a maintenance guy. And I was just telling him what I was finding. And he said, well, that's interesting, because about 12 years ago, all public buildings had what they called a refurb, which basically meant a paint, okay? And anything obvious got sorted. But what they also did was what I'd found, which was completely and utterly block off all the airflow into these old public buildings. These are public buildings that have been up for 100 years and plus, never a problem, because the builders knew what they were doing. There were plenty of airflow under these wood floors. Now I said to him, I'm a bit concerned. I said, can I knock through this wall and have a look under the main hall? And I'm talking a big, huge area. Okay, he said, yeah. So I did. I knocked it all in, because I said, really, I want to get some airflow in here. I said, but I want to inspect it. I did. The entire underneath this floor was dripping. Again, sealed. All the vents sealed. All round the edges sealed. With rock wool and other whatever they could get their hands on. And I told him this, and we both we knew what we'd found, basically, that these refurbs that were carried out, say 10, 12 years ago, across the country. This is. They created the problem. I sorted one side of it out last year, but the trouble is, the tenants had to pay for these repairs. And of course now, they're in such a state, the tenants, whomever they are, can't afford the repairs. And the council are pretty much nicking them back. Now I also picked up Roy Chubby Brown. He's done something, a little video on, it's going around Facebook. And he specifically told about how nationally the councils are taking over all the theatres and blocking the likes of Roy Chubby Brown, Jim Davidson, and old school, unfiltered comedians. So we can see that this is an actual move for them to take over theatre, to stop you or to control and censor what is going to be done in these public buildings, these theatres. But more importantly, they're putting all these buildings into trusts that they control. And football is another. So they destroyed football, set up the Premier League, thinned it out, and now what they're doing, they've given the councils the ability to rebirth your local football team as a trust. And then they're nicking land. They're nicking all the land in the trust, nicking it, and you can't go on it anymore. They've got it. They're doing business on it. They've claimed it. You've let it go. It's a trust. But this is where it gets to the nitty-gritty, and the reason why we're in this position is because we don't understand whom they're holding it in trust for. That's us. But not while you're on equity. On equity, you're a third right claim to land. You're not. If you own the freehold of your property, and this is for all you out there, it's very important that you understand this. If your property is on a leasehold land and you're paying ground rent, you're a third right claim to land. You're in equity, okay? Government's controlling that. If you own the freehold, you're in common law right, which is the second claim to right to land. Okay? You have a different power than you have on the equity. However, so this is relating to council tax and such, okay? And the busybody in there thinking they have control about what you do on your property. They do while you're on a leasehold, but on a freehold, they don't. However, the trap that you're using to keep you in equity is because you're using the equitable title, or you're not, your father's estate, the surname. Yeah? So if you've got freehold on your property and you're not mortgaged, what you need to do is remove the equity tie to that common law title that you've got so that they're not mixing. You can't identify in that on equity if you're discussing the fact that you've got your second right claim to land because you've got the freehold. Yeah. Now if you've got a laudium, and there are land and properties, especially in Yorkshire, that are selling themselves as a laudium, then you don't have any. You're outside the Crown jurisdiction, even. Okay? So if you've got freehold, it's very important that all you need to start doing now is looking at that. You need to understand that that's common law, but on your father's estate and surname, you're trapped again by equity. So that's important because I know a lot of people, especially up here where I live, they own the freehold. So that's something you can start getting your teeth into because you don't have to be subject to this council tax. You don't have to be subject to all the garbage that equity side government, which is sales tax and all this malarkey, you don't have to be subject to that if you have got the freehold. But you have to understand quite a lot of stuff. It's important. Anyway, that's another point that I thought were worth pointing out. So what were we on here? All right, yes, we've done her now. Excellent. So, ta-da! We actually get, or maybe, oh, you can't see it. I haven't finished now. Stephen Yanner that woke me up to the Noahide. That's exactly who I'm talking about. Now I know he goes off a bit with you know, he's very biblical and he's very American style, pastorish guy. He's very that. But sometimes he comes out with some bloody good stuff, and he does know the Bible. He knows it properly, and he does know what he's talking about. He's tied into CIA and all that as well, but I think in his heart he's real, and I think his wife is very real, because she was the one that really picked up all the Noahide stuff. Stephen gets a lot of intel, and it's alien-based and demon and all that stuff, but if that's not your thing, it doesn't matter, and it's not my thing neither, because for me that's just all the jingle-jangle out there in the territory, in that block and that block, that this block we're trying to get away from, using reason and logic. Yeah, so that's how I'm seeing all that. So I don't get tied into it, but I'm happy to look at it and see if I can look and see where the trap comes with it. Anyway, so yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. The Britons is a good word for it, Sean. I'm not sure I know what you mean. Grooming, it is grooming, okay, but where's mum and dad? Where is mum and dad? You know, white lads, they're into this hip hop, they're into black culture. Black culture doesn't nurture offspring. It dips its wick and does what? That's what happens. And our white boys are falling for this stuff. They're sucking into that. We've got a problem. No dad there. You know? I mean, mine had me, and my God, did I have to run riot with them schools. You won't believe I had to work frigging hard. Most of you wouldn't even do that, even if you're moral and you've got some kind of thing about you. Very few of you are going to go and make sure that what your will is enforced in that school. You know, I made it clear, the only responsibility you've got is for my offspring's safety from the minute they walk in that school enclosure until they walk out of it. As soon as they've walked out of it, they're back under mine. And I made it clear like that. You don't do anything. If they have an accident, you ring me. You ring mum. You don't decide what's done about anything until you've spoken with one of us. That's how it had to be. How it used to be. If my offspring are off, it's authorised by me. I'll send them back with a letter. The only time I want you to come and tell me it's unauthorised is if you've caught them playing truant. Which they didn't anyway. Well, not to my knowledge. So that's just keeping that standing. Took a lot of paperwork. You know, a lot of paperwork. But more importantly, along with the paperwork, you had to keep your flea bags in touch with what you were doing. So they at least had an idea that they weren't to behave like the rest of them. If there were any, you know, nonsense going on, sort of thing. And so it was no easy gig, and that's coming through in the 90s and early 2000s. So it's going to be far worse now, but there is no dad. Dad's gone. Mum's too obsessed with your lips and her nails and selfies. So these poor flea bags don't stand a chance with what's going on in these corporate schools. Poisoning, the dose. So previous to actually doing something with them, all the literature was saying that the dose that she was promoting was 3 milligrams of this particular peroxide stuff. When she came to them, she did 21 mil. Yeah. So that's not right, is it? And then, of course, once she'd done the deed, she weren't playing out with him anymore, ignoring the calls, etc., etc. So for me, that's enough, and reason why I have decided to just put that out to you today, because you really know, if you want to make sense of what's just happened, you've got extreme this, oh, it's good for you, it'll do the job, and then you've got the extreme on the other side, oh, everything about it is disgusting, ridiculous and evil, you're doomed. No good, is it? You don't want to feel like you're doomed. If you did the deed, you need to find the remedy. So far, the best I can find as something to try is start to play with different versions of fasting. Because when you do fasting, it makes your body do strange things. Yeah, it does strange things like leukemia. So for the last couple of weeks, my gangster son-in-law, and of course he's not a gangster, I'm using the term because the guy's like hard as nails. I've never known anybody deal with such a mad condition as leukemia as this guy. He's 8 years in now, kicking its ass, but last couple of weeks, he had the audacity to have a seizure. I mean, how dare he? You know, you've only got leukemia, lad. You know what I'm saying? How dare you have a seizure and frighten everybody to death? So then he gets in hospital, he gets back out, he's camping, comes back, he's an infection. He's in ICU for 6 days. Everybody, Christie's tell everybody, you better prepare where do you want him buried, you want him to die at home or in hospital. So you can imagine his poor wife, my daughter, and my other daughter, who's as involved in this as you could be, is shouting herself. According to all intents and purposes, Friday just gone, he's kicking bucket kind of thing. So, you know, you've got to remember when things are happening, if they can get somebody on cancer, it affects the entire family, doesn't it? It affects everybody. You know, I mean, of course it affects those close into it first, worse, but it has an effect on everybody. So they've got to grab on you, haven't you? You've got you thinking in certain ways. But, so, leukemia, at its core, it's a failure of stem cell production. Or damaged cells, because it's not producing stem cells. Now, if you fast for 3 days and 3 nights, that means no food, no water. So you'd obviously have to prepare yourself and slowly build yourself to that. Your body starts to build and create new stem cells. Yeah? That's what it does. So fasting, it can enact detox. Don't know whether you saw Sean Ross just after he became homeless again recently. He'd gone on an hardcore water and food fast, but yet he was pissing all the time. No fluid going in, but he's pissing. So it makes you detox. You know? Your body reacts in strange ways when you do particular fasting sessions, you know? But ultimately, if you do both food and water for 3 days, your body starts to reproduce and create brand new stem cells. So I've been trying to show my daughter and son there that's what they need to be looking at, I think. Anyway, lo and behold, Death Door Friday, according to Christie's, is now bouncing off walls again today. So I mean, it's just comeback kid is not. It's just ridiculous. So we can all breathe again now. We can all have a breath. In fact, when I go and see him this week, I'm going to kick his head in for being cheeky and having the audacity to have a seizure and then get a lung infection. I just don't know who he thinks he is. So he's going to get a slapping, and that's pretty much it. But yeah, you know, for what we were on about before, if you've done the dance, it's not the end of the world. But if you're going to take on this new controlled opposition, you sort of like think it's the end of the world. It isn't. There's always a way. We might not completely clear it out, but you're going to get rid of a lot of the nasty stuff. And so we have to consider how much of this stuff that they're saying is in it isn't. You know? So yeah, we have to be extra. You have to be alert to everything. You have to only believe one thing at the expense of another. It's so important. And that's across the board in your entire life, not just in relation to this kind of stuff. So that's that. Let's have a look. Hunted's a bit late. It's not a problem, Hunted. Same with that guy on Inspired. Anyone who bought into the Z stack succumbed to the trap worse than the thing. Stephen Yana, well, they're the two that I'm talking about. I think it was Yana's dad that she snotted. That was where she could confront it and she continued to promote herself on with Tenpenny, yeah. Yeah. So a lot of these people that the middle class have sucked into and accepted, you guys, because if you're new to this, you really have to start to work out and understand how this game works. It's so, I mean, this is the main reason I keep doing this, because I've been doing it for so long, I've seen through the fucking lot. It's so blatant to me, because I know the game, I know how they do it, I know what to watch for, and I'm pretty well versed with a lot of things, so I know if they're obfuscating, missing something in a lot of cases. But yeah, and you know, when you come into this new, you've no idea how the game actually works. The same priesthood's controlling the whole gig. Your video feed is about 2 FPS. So what you're saying, that's a bit piss. Is it not playing out? Judy Mikovic included in with Tenpenny. Again, names, I'm not familiar with them, but you need to look again. And anybody that's come filtered up through Stu Peters and Tucker Carlson. You know, I mean, I'm watching the Trump brigade. I mean, God, can you imagine, right? If Trump is the real deal, it would be amazing. It really would be amazing if he was the real deal. Because you can't help but agree. But then isn't that a big part of the mentality that they're creating for this one to be worshipped? You know, it's gone beyond. I trust this fellow. I like what he says. I'm idolising. Yeah, they're trying to create. They've created in the flea bags with William and Kate. I noticed this week all they've done is promote William and Kate, further the wedge between Harry and William. But let's be honest, guys. It doesn't matter whether you like Harry or who you agree with on the shindig. But I've even noticed this week they're using Diana. They're bringing Diana out and saying, look, one of the offspring looks just like her. And I had to be honest, it didn't. I don't really want to be getting... You don't want to be talking about the youngsters. They're not... But they're putting them out and making them part of it, which is ridiculous. But they're making a big play on putting William up there and knocking Harry off. But if you think about it, Diana, of the two sons, which one? Whether you like him or not, which one of them is operating more in tune with Diana? Yeah? But then on top of that, I'll tell you now, it's a double blag, but it's controlled, this. A, to boost William up as they're trying to get people behind William. It's a gig, it's a blag. They're both playing a game. You know, Miracle same, she's from Swiss royalty. Very good in the suits, I have to say, which I've been watching in this last 6 months. I love it. I've learned a lot about how the game really does work up there. You don't really want to be bothering with courts, do you? It's all on agreements that you get there first. So that's been an interesting study as well. But it's just a big blag. But what they're actually doing, because he's going to America in September, is they're now putting him up and saying he's more popular than Trump. He's the man that Americans believe can unite. You're with me? It's important that you get this, and that can be done because it's the Scottish Rite that pretty much is Freemasonry over in the US. And it was carried out in the Cecil Hotel way back in the day when the English clergy wouldn't take the Schofield Bible. They wouldn't take it. They told them to piss off. The aristocracy, some of the aristocracy took it, but the clergy weren't having it. So they made it so that the Ivy League came over as part of the Carrick, but more of a DOS time to the Cecil Hotel, and the Masons then pumped them up with Scottish Rite, sent them back. And that's why evangelicalism today is pumped up with Scottish Rite, Freemasonry. And this is what they're depending on, that the American massive will support this because it's completely Scottish Rite. It's template. It's not Christian in any way, shape or form. We looked at last week, the evangelicals in America supporting the Israeli government. The Israeli government is basically Russian non-Jews. Khazars. They're not supporting the Israeli people as they think in the map, because if they start think about it, actually in supporting what Israel's doing now, you're not supporting the Israeli people. You're not supporting the Jews, you're supporting the Russians. Okay, I mean, these guys are going for it now down in Israel. Netanyahu and his crew. And Trump will go with it. I know he will. He's going to go with it. I know he did fall out with Netanyahu, but I don't know. So I don't know. But like I said, you know, I like what Trump says. How can you not? But, you know, who did the warp speed? You know, enough said. Enough said, guys. Cool. So I don't know. The jury has to be out because you hope he is. But, yeah, so it's all private agreement backed by the fact that the agreement is in place between the executive and the judiciary enforcing it under a colour of law. As per Aylesbury's law, well, it's the law of agreement, isn't it? Contract law. What is the contract? You go to any magistrate court, you've gone in straight away as the debt. So they're illegal, historic courts, okay? And you go back in any common law and it'll tell you that. It's been shown, it's been proven. William and Mary did the same. But that was when it was still based on common law. Basically everybody had a second right claim to land, as it were. In theory. You certainly had a claim to common land. You know what I'm saying? But most people were tenants, and from which the equitable title was created, which is what the government are running. Now, something else that I just need to point out, because I have spoken in times past that governments went bankrupt, and I think they did in 31, but when they paid that off in the 90s, if I remember rightly, they didn't go bankrupt, they went into administration. Now because before they went bankrupt a couple of times, and so I was a bit aware of what was going on. And I was of the opinion that once you went bankrupt, then the company went into administration. It does to a degree, but basically they're selling everything off, paying creditors. But to actually go into administration is a different gig than actual bankruptcy. It's a failure, but instead of bankruptcy, they've gone into administration and they keep it going. And that's what we're in. So all this equitable title is being operated in administration. So they're just grabbing everything they can off you. So equity is law of agreements. The common law is the law of the land. Them's the rules. So if you've got freehold, you have that right, but not while you're playing around with the equity side. You've got to get that together, which is what, again, we're doing. We're trying. I've been off it for a while, obviously, because mine's been elsewhere, but now that he's back running around the room and that, and, yeah, we can relax a little bit, so maybe we can crack on. So I have a freehold, I have no mortgage, excellent. You're in a good position, but you're still trapped. Your property's still trapped because you've signed off on the council tax. You're in an agreement with the council, the government, the crown, to pay that council tax. So there's quite a bit to be known to actually... Knowing that in and of itself is quite important, because there's a lot of people on Blighty that have freehold. You know, and if you have a common law right to the land, then I can't see how they can take your house on equity if you can perform that reversion. You know what I'm saying? Anyway. Daffy Davis says, yeah, always good, never let the bastards get you, etc. Well, that's it, you have to try your best, don't you? So, consent to the government. Anthony says, John says, good vid, Sean. Cheers, John. Now, John puts good vid before he's watched it, normally, as well. Unless he's watched it live, not said now, and then put it straight on underneath. But John is psychic. I like John. Treen says, yet it's only the TV, but if I watch Shy, it works fine. So, if I'm correct, you won't have an Ethernet, will you, from your telly to your router? So you get a much better speed if you did that. Most people, when they're doing this, are using it from the router on Wi-Fi, and if it's not a great signal, there is another way you can do it, and that is from your phone. You can actually use your phone as an intermediary for your signal, so you don't even actually need internet in your house, if I'm right. Double check that though. Hi Sean, have you seen Gregory Allett back? Oh, is he? No, I haven't. Coming on strong, calling out Hillary by way of what terms capture and release. My concern is it is his docs are put through CLC. So let me read that again. Have you seen Greg J. Allett? He's back on the scene again, coming on strong, calling out Hillary. Why is a guy here calling out Hillary? What do we care about Hillary? That's for Americans to deal with. By the way of what he terms capture and release, my concern with it is his docs are put through CLC. I mean, I like Greg, don't get me wrong. He's a nice guy. He is a nice guy. But I think, it's a Templar gig, what they've tried to do. Portugal is important. It is the Templar stronghold. And as we've discussed, and I hope I've sort of managed to at least give you a different way to look at it, that Lucifer actually isn't a creature. Never was. It's what the secret society people call applied logic and reason of your own self to apply to your own life. Yeah, so cast out of heaven is not... Can you see what I keep trying to get across? How words are spoken, an image comes into your map, that's how you've interpreted it. Wrong. It's not right. It's right for you, and it's right for them that really know what's being said. So the minute you see Lucifer, fallen angel out of heaven, you're going through the biblical script. You see in heaven out there, an angel with wings going, doof, get down onto earth, pal. No, they cast out of the garden logic and reason. So that's your new religion. So the dogma prevents that. If you look at the Ten Commandments, even if you want to take them on board, there's nothing in there that stops you from using your own logic and reason, is it? But the dogma of these institutions does. Big difference. So when these secret societies moved off this way, it was just intelligent people moving off, keeping the morality of the religion, but moving away from the dogma. Makes perfect sense to me. Perfect sense to me. And how have I got there? I forgot what you said. So the Templars in and of themselves may not have been bad, but then they did do a lot of bad stuff. Or did they? Have we just had it reported that they were all bad? I mean, what's happening through the Holy See today is pure evil. Because they haven't told anybody what's going on. Ever. They say the opposite, which is not funny. Okay, the big change is Vatican II, but did anybody really tell us? No, they focused us to the Fatima. You know what I mean? So if you were looking for what Vatican II really means, we didn't get what it meant. We just got this prophecy of doom. Didn't we? Or didn't they? Because I can't say we, because I weren't party to all this stuff. But my mother's generation were. So, you know, Vatican II, Fatima, you don't get to see that it's actually shifting the entire system so that it can grab what's got and move it into something else that's a lesser. They didn't tell you that. And they're saving you for what? Gentiles are going to be killed. That's the gig. If this system moves in, and the Masons are 21st degree Scottish Rite, and York Rite probably is equivalent, Noahide judge. Off with the head. Off with the head. Who likes to off with the head? Is that them guys that are building this big fucking nonsense thing and a cube? I do believe it is. Let's have a look here. Best thing is to use your own intuition. Well, that's the kink you're in. You're getting your points of reference from within, aren't you? As the man said. You can read, you know, the reason why they don't push that everywhere. You never go past a church where it says, the kingdom of God is within. Because that prevents you from going in and giving them some cash. Doesn't it? You never see that phrase on any church, on any literature. And, you know, if they say it, they're forced to say it. They're forced to say it. But, so what does it mean to you when, I'm just trying to think, what picture do people pick up when they hear that phrase? The kingdom of God is within. Do they mean inside a church? Inside a building? Is that what they think? Is that the picture? The mental map picture that comes in when you hear that? Because that's not what it's ever meant to mean, ever. It means what I say it means, which is if you're looking for bigger cheese and not the garden boy, then you're going to be looking inside, not outside. What else do they have down here somewhere? So here's an interesting thing. I don't know whether if you savvy with the old theosophy and the original, what were he called? The world teacher, I can't remember his name. Krishnamurti. Now, when he went off track and started saying, listen, you don't need any masters, you don't need fucking anybody, crack on yourself, it's all in you. What the masters here then said, oh, he's gone off track, basically, world teacher doesn't know fuck all, is what they're saying, we know more, why do we need a world teacher then? They started to say they were preaching a form of Avesha, or Advaita, Vedanta. So I picked this up, which is it means adversa videntia, right? Means videnta. The mind does not know what is behind the mind. So that's your mind. Doesn't know what's behind it. But it, the mind, is known by what is behind the mind. So that's what they accused him of preaching, and why he said you don't need masters. Because it's all in you. We are mind. Yeah? And if we're in tune with Genesis 1, we are creating of our own fruition from within. If we're in the garden, we're obeying. Yeah? And there's nothing wrong with that. If you feel that you need to be obedient to the dogmas, that's fine. I don't have a problem. I really don't. But I know you will have a problem with what I try and do. What I do is just crack on. So, okay. Best thing is intuition. Chivalry. Well, I'm surprised that he's concerning himself with Hillary bloody Clinton. I mean, for God's sake, is she still alive? It weren't that long ago. I watched them pick her up and load her in a taxi because she was stamping her feet and didn't want to go in. Not a taxi, a limo. Lex Morris says, fasting is prescribed on you like the nations before us, so many attain. Well, okay, let's talk about... Oh, I forgot, and I did want to add this before. When we're talking about the garden god. Look, people, it's all mishmashed up, but this is basically what happened. This geezer, this god, one Elohim, who was saying that, piss that, you already just worship me, that, blah, 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 made a claim on the Israelites, and they said to him, sorry pal, right, we don't want to play out with you. We want a real king, earthly. We don't want to play with unseen geezers. That's why the Israelites were condemned and cursed all over the shop. Whether it happened like that, I would say it didn't. I really wouldn't, because when you look at who potentially the remnants of all that, that is the nature, isn't it? That's why we built everything we built. Because by nature we're more extrovert in the sense that we're creative. East is very introvert. So it's a mix of the two, innit? You've got to balance that up. The land registry owns all the properties on land. Nobody owns anything down here, because you might be in the garden on tenancy, but they know that in Genesis 1 you can only have dominion. You can't own anything. Nobody can. The minute you say I own, you... Yeah. It's dominion over. So what you create is yours, dominion. But when it comes to what's already here, created in the first king, Genesis 1, you're only a caretaker. And the term they use is dominion. In the garden, you're renting. Right? And the Uber guy said he was the vicar of Christ, claimed it all. But in trust. Can't claim to own it. Holding it in trust, just like the monarch does. Yeah, gets commission from the church, a kingdom. He's then got the first right claim to land. His best mates, the ones that helped him get it, they're his barony. Second right to land. They're in common law. Everybody else beneath that is a tenant at different degrees. Well, it's the feudal system. That's how it operates. Yeah? But in the shenanigans here, through Stanley's, the Palavicini, they made sure the British Isles became its own entity, and that Henry VIII took ecclesiastical jurisdiction as well. But he didn't take it, he was given it by the Holy See. So it's one move away from the Vatican as church, but it's still under the Holy See, thanks to Palavicini and Farnese and the rest, but mainly Farnese and Palavicini, with the big players on the British Isles after the Breakspears up sticks and went to China. Yeah, we haven't even got to British Isles. Well, we can start anyway, can't we? Let's have a look and get through this. Hydrogen peroxide, is that what they're dishing out? Okay. For anyone who works at a local high school, there's a tyranny toilet, and they've been told that a cat litter tray had to go in there for the furries. What? My friend who works at the local high school, there's a tyranny toilet, and they've been told that a cat litter tray had to go in there for the furries. Furries? Are you actually trying to say that they're IDing as cats in that school? Louise Bennett says, Tomar, Portugal, Templar HQ. Well, a big chunk of the Navy went there. I mean, if you actually look, have you ever time, pull up Portugal on Google Maps, and then come up to the coast, bring it up, and you watch the tributaries going into Portugal. These rivers, tons of them. And some of them go right into Spain. Now, I don't know whether you can get a ship that far. But there's a reason why the Navy were in Portugal. Yeah, makes sense, doesn't it? It makes sense. So, we have to come off this. If we're going to come away from our edits, you have to stop hating Templars. If you're a Templar, you have to stop hating Christians. If you're a Christian, you have to stop hating Templars, and vice versa. Islam, Muslims, Jews, etc. You're always going to get the hardcore that don't, because they're so fixed into it. They are so ring-fenced in that belief system. It's never going to happen. But you are the power for each of these individual groups and operations. Without you, they don't have any power. They just have their weapons. At the moment, they've got everybody. Full power. Saw through the Trump year ago. Abraham Accord, Coinate Tuesday, blah, blah, blah. Yep. He's got the fucking woman as a son-in-law. Yeah. Well, they were talking about him being this superhero, but you can see another side to it, the corporate side of trying to make it look like it's Larry Fink with BlackRock and Vanguard and what's that other place called? I can't remember the other one. There's three of them in there, three huge investment funds. I can't think of other. It's there on the tip of my tongue. Interestingly, galleons are the logo. Piracy. It can't be any more blatant, to be frank, you know. East India. It's what it is. It's what all these things are. I took Judy's message to heart, and once my mum took my bloody notice, I wasn't bothered. Who's Judy? I have a humidifier at my bedside with hydrogen peroxide 3% trying to help with my COPD. We did do some. There's some herbs, and we did have a look at that. Didn't we, when we used to do the herbal thing at the end of each live stream, which we will get back to this autumn. So Igatha, hello Igatha, custodian. Yeah, custodian, executor, benefit. They're all terms, aren't they, relating to trust law. And they are in custody of the Sesquivy, which has been created as a lesser trust further down the line from the monarch. And the government, because it's corporate, because it's in administration, are the ones dishing out all the garbage. You can spray 6 squirts of H2O2 directly in the mouth as you breathe in, as well as turkey tail mushrooms plus NAC and glycine for COPD. Thanks for that, Truth is Sovereign. I have a mate that has COPD. I hope you're listening there, Clayton Warrior. Let's have a look. Paul Sefton, State Street. That's the one. State Street, Vanguard, BlackRock. They have the controlling shares in insidious 10 trillion kind of figure amounts of our shit as commerce, as a parasite on it. And the trusts are a big part of that, because nobody owns anything, and they know it. Dominion is the only thing you can have, not ownership. As soon as you use that word, you know you're fruit bat. You know what I'm saying? Like, for instance, I had this conversation with a friend the other day, and because when you've been doing it for so long, even I've still cock it up, don't get me wrong, but it's you realise and recognise just how far people off. They've got the knowledge, they've got an idea. But, for instance, just said something like, he'd rung them up and said, you've sent me a letter. I said, first point, they've sent a letter addressed to the trust. You've told them that they'd sent you a letter, so you straight away have ID'd as trust. Then in another conversation, it was, you've used my name. Again, you've claimed to be the trust. You don't own that name. It's the SSQV trust. The Crown owns it. The minute you make those mistakes, you've told them your capacity. They ain't going to listen to what you've not met them go, oh my God, this guy knows what he's. They're not. They know they can just take the piss and massage you as much as they want. So keep that in mind. I can't remember how we got that. Eucalyptus oil for coping, thyme, peppermint, copper barrel, lavender. I will go with eucalyptus and peppermint with the oils and the hot water. Oh my God. Brilliant for your lungs. Absolutely amazing. It's quite difficult as well because it hurts. Igatha says, howdy mate, how are you doing, Igatha? Possession is 9/10 of the law. Yes, it certainly is. Yes, I've seen Greg back. To me, he's clutching straws and using damage limitation to reverse some of the attacks made on him. But he did have a lot of good eye. And he was a fucking warrior with a guy. What he needs to do is, me personally, I'd say just about turn, let go of all that, pick up what's important, and which is just the reasons as to why these guys that are in now are frauds and fake. But the thing is, I don't know how it's going to pan out for him because the Templars and the Scottish Rite, how connected are they? You know, I'd say very. In fact, I'd say the Scottish Rite is a Templar gig. Whether that's known at low degrees, I don't know. And I don't know, I'm not trying to pontificate. But unless we all stop playing in the shit and the game, the ring fence, the edit that they give us, there's never going to be anything come together. I mean, like, people attack Masons. Most of the people in the Masons haven't got a clue about this. They don't know the dark side that goes on with it. But if you don't get the Masons and the Jesuits to about turn and see the game, it's never going to work. They have all the power positions, short of a massive wake-up on ground level, working in unison, in sync, and not to run around smashing things up, which is why they're importing all these geezers. Have you seen them? These guys that went onto that voyage. You were telling me they came over on a fucking boat? These were soldiers. Pristine Urquharts, rucksacks, and shitloads of luggage, in decent clothes. They came over on a plane, the soldiers. I mean, they keep pissing this shit up about these voyages. They're just trying to get you to accept them. They're not telling you nothing. You know, they keep going on about, oh, they're not going in because they're scared of water. Fuck off. You know, the immigrants you see coming over on boats are not the guys that are going into these voyages. They're soldiers. And if you don't get a grip of that rapido and start to work out that your nation have been through this before and your ancestors worked it out, militia mind is what you need, because the only has to be repelled, and America is fighting for its soul. You know, we all have to do it. Nobody can just sit there and say, well, let America do it. We have to do it here. France has to do it in France, Italy, Belgium, Holland, Norway. You know, we have to do it. But you can see them turning it, that ultra right wing. You can see it. You've seen Greg back? No, I haven't seen him, but I'm glad he's back. But I just hope because he has a lot to say. There's also Talbot, Ivan over there in the old Aussie land. He says he's up for it if he got some teeth. He gets there with the love art and the same to thee. Train says yes, mute. Truth is sovereign. For the 6 sprays, take only the 3% H2O2. And Igatha says, my person. It's not yours, Joe. It's not. A 10 pass costs around 360. A 10 pass? Igatha. Copaiba oil. It contains beta-carotene, BCB, which is one of the compounds in CBD oil that makes it therapeutic for pain relief. Well, thank you very much for that as well, Igatha. That's very good info, because there's a lot of people with COPD. Right, okay. So, we'll finally have a gig here over here, because we've never got around to it. Where is it? I forgot what I'm doing. Oh yeah. Boom. Here we go. Alright, now that's it. I need to. So now I need to. Not that one. That one. Can you read that? Let me just. I have to just affect this a little bit. You can read that there. Is that big enough? Can you actually see the? Let me just. So this is it's an age website. This. The National CV of Britain. Yeah. So of course that means the British Isles is what they're talking about. Now actually I had all this set up before, but we keep not doing it, and I'm actually now thinking at it. I'm looking at it, I'm thinking I forgot which ones I hit. Anyway, we'll have a bash. So last week we got to Lucius, didn't we? The first Christian king in the whole wide world. Here, on Blighty. Okay? Not over there in Palestine. Blighty. Which of course includes Ireland. He says monarchs. Monarchs refer to Britain's kings and queens who have usually become sovereign, head of state by hereditary right. Britain is the oldest monarchy in the world. There is a 3,000-year history of about 140 kings and queens, representing extraordinary continuity. The islander's ancient tradition is of a mixed government, of the regal and the democratic. In modern times, this has evolved into constitutional monarch in a parliamentary democracy. Some nations have not allowed women to rule, but Britain has the proudest tradition of queens anywhere, to the present queen. Well, she wasn't really. Elizabeth II, who was born in 1926. William Shakespeare, 1564 to 1616, described Britain as the sceptred isle. He was referring to a royal sceptre, a symbol of power. Yet the consent of the people has also been a vital part of the British tradition. The British chronicles, carefully weighed, have provided significant information for this section. New students of ancient British history could do worse than to start with Flinders Petries' essay, Neglected British History, before reading the work alluded to in that, the Tysilio Chronicle, and delving into the mighty works of the Tudor historian Holinshed and the Stuart historian Percy Enderby, examples of both of whose texts are appended to a number of more articles. Now we touched on Enderby last week, didn't we, when we went through that thesis, speaking about Lucius. So, hang on. It says a catalogue of the king and princes of this land, first from Samothrace unto the birth of our Saviour Christ, or rather the coming of the Romans. Secondly, of the legates. Thirdly, of the Saxon princes, according to the several kingdoms. Fourthly, of the Danes, and lastly, of the Normans and English princes, according to the truth contained in our histories. So this is basically, let me see if I can make that a bit bigger. Is that getting a little bit better? Can you see? Okay, I hope you can see that. So it's a bit of a, goes through these, says the kings of Britain, from Samothrace to Brute. Hang on. So I think there's a better, there we go. Now, it's worth a read that anyway, but this is a better list, it makes it a bit. The material in the above table is rendered below in fully legible and courtesy of the Holinshed Project, Oxford, with a list of Roman legates after King Lucius omitted. So they've omitted the Roman legates. So, yeah, so Lucius we touched on last week, but this is what happened before. So it starts off with Samothrace, Magus, Saronius, Druius, Bardus, Longo, Bardus, Eunor, Lucas, Celtis, Albion, Celtis after Albion slain, Galates, Harbon, Lugdus, Belligius, Lasius, Alabrox, Romus, Paris, Limanus, Olbius, Galates II, Nanes, Remis, Francus, and Pictus. Right? How many of you heard of them before? Huh? It says, after whom Brutus entereth the land, either neglected by the Celts or otherwise by conquest, and reigned therein with his posteriority by the space of 636 years, in such order as follows. So this line is of a space of 636 years. So then we have Brutus, landed at Tottenham, where we get the new Troy, London. Then it was Locrinus, Gwendolina, who was his widow, Madden, Mempricius, Ibracus, Bretus Ionia, Leal, Rudibras, Bladanus, Lear, Cordeal, his daughter, Cunodac and Morgan, Rielan, Gergustius, Cicilus. See, these sound like Roman names, don't they, if you think about it? So you can see that there's a massive stake here before all that stuff. Igo, Camachus, Gorbadug, and then to Forres and Porrex. Right? So that's a period of 636 years, geezers. These two being slain, the princes of the land strove for the superiority and regiment of the same by the space of 50 years, after the race of Brute was decayed, until Dunwallen, king of Cornwall, subdued them all, and brought the whole to his subjection. Notwithstanding that the aforesaid number of kings remained still, which were but a vassal and inferiors to him, he being their chief, and only sovereign, one sovereign, or whatever. Alright, I'm obviously thick today. So then we get, Ferrers and Porrex, then we get to Dunwallen, which is where you get the oldest law that we talk about, which is the right to the highway. Right, so here we've got this geezer. So this is about 300 and something BC, I think. Now, this is interesting, again, after this guy. So Dunwallen, or Donald the Bold, they were called, had two flea bags. Belinus was his son, in whose time Brennus usurpeth. So Belinus was the geezer, the oldest, and Brennius screwed it up. Okay, now Brennus actually went to war when Dunwallen had died, because Brennius didn't want, he had a fit and a tantrum, because Belinus were the big boy, and they kicked off and had a massive war, and Mum were having a fit. Basically, they took over the entire British Isles in these wars, and then Brennius got kicked out to Gaul. Or so one story goes. The other story goes that they did fall out, they took over Britain, then they made best as friends, and then took over Europe and sacked Rome. And of course, the Dunwallens claim Trojan heritage. So, from the time Rome was sacked, does suggest the Trojans were in charge. So after Belinus and Brennius, it is Gergwinbatrus, Guitelinus, Cecil, Camarus, Owen Elias Ellen, Morwich Elias Morindus, my son's called Elias, Grandobodian, Elias Gorbonian, Orsigallan, Elidurus Elias Esidor, Archigallan again, Elidurus again, Vegan Elias Aganius, and Peteter Elias Petidrus. Pretty Romanesque, are they, these names, let's be honest. Elidurus the third time. So if that's the case, then The reason why these names are popular in Rome is because, if it is said, Belinus and Brennius pretty much took it over. How interesting is that? Where are we up to? I forgot where we are. Oh, there. Elidurus the third time, Gorbodia alias Gorbonian, Morgan, Mirones alias Aegunes, Ardualan, Remo Rohugo, Gerantius Vaughan, Vohen, Catellus, Coelus, Pyro alias Porrex, Porrex going up here, Chirenius, Falganius alias Sulgenis, Eldadus, Androgius, Vrian, Helindus, Didantius Eldagon, Clotinus Claton. Good strange people. They must have been from Yorkshire, this lot, I'm telling you. Gerguntius, Gerguintus rather, Merian, Bledinus Bleda, Copenis, Owinus alias Ogowen, Sicilus or Siltus, and gone. Blegabridus, Acromalus, Archeol. Why is it not working? What's going on here? Oh, it's at the end. Oh, wait a minute. There's more to it here. Aladus, Ruthinus, Rodericus, Rodriguez. And then it goes. You can't see them for some reason. Hang on a minute. Rodriguez, alias Rodericus, Samuelius, Pensil, Pyro, Corporis, alias Copperis, Dinellus, alias Dagnellus, Helindus, Ephumoneths, Lahod, Cassivelaunus, Theomantius, Cynobelinus, Arviragus, Marius, Coelus, and Lucius. So all that before we even get to Lucius, who was first Christian king. Now that's got to be a bit crazy. Let me just have a look here, because there's more and I forgot which one I went to. Did I go to here? Oh no, that is the one. Okay, let me have a look. I've completely forgot what I was doing. Rulers AD. Here we go. Royal family tree. Vital resources on the basis of Gregorian English and Cambrian Welsh genealogies. Royal family tree below combines information from both sources. It was compiled by R.W. Morgan. Family tree covers the late BC, early AD era. So we've got Beli the Great, BC 100, Cassivelaunus, Lud, King Lud, Lyra, Brian the Blessed, first royal convert, Caractacus, AD 4080. So this is when we've got Cartamandua, Queen of the Brigantes. Still can't understand what she did that for. Tenvantius, Cymbeline, Guiderius and Arviragus, Merrick or Marius, Ergen, who was a daughter, Alus Rufus, Prudentius, Saint Timotheus, Saint Novatius, Saint Prexides, Saint Prudentia, and all their martyrs. Silenus called Lucius or Livia Mar. Gladys, Gladys, a daughter. Yeah, that's an odd name then, isn't it? Gladys. Prince of Cambria, Strada the Fair, Cole, King of Colchester, Helen, Constantius, afterwards Emperor, AD 242, Constantine the Great, AD 265 to 336, Constantine II, Constantius II, the Byzantine dynasty. Look at that, Byzantine dynasty. Helen, Julian the Apostate, her cousin. To be honest, I can't remember what I was looking at because it's been 3 weeks now and I haven't looked at it, because we were meant to do this 3 weeks ago and I had it quite well set, but obviously, as I always do, I'm going to put this up for you so you can have a goof on at it yourself. So folks, I hope that's been an interesting shindig. So let's have a look here what we're talking. Oh, there's a few yet. Cast royal, many uses. My person, I remember that one. Elf Bunker Clinic, yep, most welcome, sure. Castro, yeah, thanks for that, Agatha. We do like all like any remedies that means you can be your own doctor. We love it. Tasha Kin says you've missed it. I will have to catch up tomorrow. I show everyone. No problem, yo, China. I went to meet up on Lytham a few months back. Okay, Michael Feely talks about this too. Reoxygenated the blood with the third molecule by IV, passes through the ozonator and is then passed back into you. Oh, brilliant. Okay, so you're having a chat. That's good. You subscribe to the bullshit platform. What's that? Robert Seffer had a good video out a few days ago. He did, yeah, I watched it. Excellent. He's actually a good geezer, young man. I like him. Fur is the gateway to bestiality. Dark. Ori coronation stones. I'd seen interesting info circa 2015 around the Irish and English coronation stones and the authenticity of the coronation and families in place themselves. There was discussion at the time that the stone was switched out to, yeah. Well, he certainly sat on it up in the old Aggie Squeeze of land, didn't he? Mew, don't you like sheep farm? They have loads of background research on Huxley and those in power. I think there's much value in many of these YouTubers. A bit of this and a bit of that. Yeah, there is, and even like I said, the shills have to be giving you 80% good shit. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. You wouldn't go for it. Such beautiful names, aren't they? Shagass and Cylinder. I mean, come on, Elias. I like that. My youngest is called Elias. He's about 6'6", a little shitbag. I'm gonna have to knock him out next. Every couple of years, I have to knock him out just to say, "Hey, I'm still geezer, you little shits." So yeah, wonderful names, but Gladys. That's an old name, innit? How Gladys? Sounds like an Harry Potter spell. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? I wonder if any of the mothers were on something to assist with the birth for the name choice. Well, we do a good bunch of magic mushrooms on the Rich Shells, I have to say. By far, they're better than the Welsh ones, according to the Welsh boys from up here, from when I get them. Of course, I haven't used them for a long time, but I am due a dream quest, to be honest. So I might just partake of the old Native American Dream Quest game and see where we are. Sounds like an Harry Potter spell, yeah, special herbs. Yes, they got slammed for charging £2 a month. Yes, I believe you, Sean. It is for private army ready to step in. Yeah, damn right it is. Was at the end of everyone's name, it's so united. Igatha. Yeah, we got the smiley face, 2 thumbs up and a love heart. Brilliant, Igatha. I've always loved Gwendolyn as a name. I heard a variant in there. Yeah, you'll find them also, but wasn't it funny how a lot of the old Roman sounding names, they were in there way back before Rome were even thought of. So folks, with that, I'm going to say thanks for joining me. Thanks for taking part. I hope it made a bit of sense. And thank God, son-in-law is no longer on death's door. Little shit. I don't know. DMT, I've had DMT. I blocked it. I didn't let it do its thing. But I have experienced it, so I know what to expect. If I decide to have a little shindig on the old DMT sometimes. But my old mate Danny, what would he call? They killed him. Can't remember his name. A couple of years ago. I forgot his name. How can I forget his name? Maybe I'll have to do a mention for him next week because he brought me some. And yeah, it were interesting, let's say that. But anyway, that's enough of that malarkey. And I will say thanks for joining, chaps. And here we go. Till the next time.